Did you ever wonder why the Renaissance art looks so insanely accurate? It's not magic, it's anatomy. And some of these artists got very hands-on. Before Da Vinci, before Gray's Anatomy, before you could Google what a femur looks like, medieval artists had a problem. First of all, the medieval world wasn't obsessed with realism. Art was meant to inspire the soul, not to replicate the body. Figures were symbolic, not anatomical. Halos, stylized faces, elongated limbs. The medieval artists weren't really educated in anatomy. Most of what they painted was based on guesses. Dissection was a taboo. In many parts of medieval Europe, it was illegal or morally condemned. The Catholic Church had strict views about sanctity of the body, especially regarding the afterlife. Dissecting corpses was often equated with heresy or sacrilege. So artists had to get creative, and they learned anatomy from a few different sources. Ancient texts like the Galen writings, preserved through Arabic translations and not always accurate. Animal dissections like pigs and monkeys. Pretty close, right? Battlefields and executions, where artists might get a glimpse of the exposed human form. However, by the 14th and 15th century, the Catholic Church's grip began to loosen. Not because the Church changed its mind, but for a few different reasons. First of all, scholasticism had trained thinkers to separate spiritual and physical knowledge. The soul, salvation, and divine truth belong to the realm of theology. The body, nature, and material world could be explored through reason, observation, and philosophy. This opened the door to the idea that studying the human body wasn't necessarily threatening to the human soul. Thinkers like Thomas Aquinas argued that reason and faith were both valid paths to truth. They didn't always have to overlap. Because scholastic training taught students to evaluate different sources, the Bible, Aristotle, Galen, Augustine, and resolve contradictions logically. We're not doing this to question God, but to understand His creation more deeply. Studying the body doesn't desecrate it, it reveals its divine order. This mental separation made it easier to justify cutting into a corpse for knowledge, as long as you weren't claiming that it challenged religious truth. The Renaissance sparked a revival of Greco-Roman thinking, including medicine. With the rise of universities in places like Bologna, Padua, and Montpellier, there was a need for medical education. Humanism, the intellectual backbone of the Renaissance, encouraged returning to direct observation of nature rather than just accepting ancient texts. So, for example, if Galen says that the liver has 5 lobes, but I can only see 2, maybe Galen is wrong. So the church began allowing limited dissections, especially if they were for educational purposes and done under controlled conditions. Artists worked with surgeons, and surgeons worked with artists, and the cadaver became a classroom. Renaissance anatomy wasn't just observation. It was reverence. Renaissance thinkers began to see the body not as a sinful shell, but as a divine mechanism full of harmony and proportion. The body was now something to understand and admire, not to fear and cover up. Leonardo da Vinci dissected over 30 corpses in his lifetime, sketched tendons, muscles, and even internal organs with astonishing precision, centuries ahead of medical science. Michelangelo didn't just study anatomy, he carved it into marble and painted it into God. Every muscle has divine drama. Andreas Vesalius, though not an artist himself, Vesalius' 1543 book rewrote the anatomy rulebook. He challenged centuries of Galenic dogma with what he actually saw, with beautifully illustrated and highly detailed plates. There were new tools that also helped artists: silver point and chalk for precise line work, oil painting for flesh tones and volume, perspective to place bodies realistically in space, and studio models, live or sculpted, to observe anatomy in motion. The Renaissance turned the artist into something more: a scientist, a philosopher, and a visionary. And the body? It became the ultimate subject, complex, expressive, and sacred. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and like the video if you learned something new. Also, let me know in the comments below other topics that you would like me to talk about on my channel. And I'll see you in the next video.